Hello everyone and welcome back. This is Development Diary number 10 for the 30th of July 2018. So in this development diary they basically go over the different country ranks, as they call them. Basically there are four of them. There's the city-state, the local power, the major power, and the great power. The city-state is obviously a city, and they get plus 20 commerce income, plus 20% defensiveness, and a extra diplomatic relation. Local powers are plus 2 diplomatic relation, and both the city-state and the local power can be in a part of a defensive league. Major powers cannot be a part of a defensive league. They also get plus 3 diplomatic relations, plus 1 trade route in the capital, plus 1 of each power for the matching ideas to the government form, for a total of 2. That's a little complex, but if you stop and think about it, you kind of get the idea. Then there's threaten war and guarantee diplomatic abilities that they can do. Great powers also get the threaten war and guarantee. They also can enforce peace, and what was the other thing? They can intervene in a war. That's right. And then they also have plus 5 diplomatic relations, plus 2 trade routes in the capital, plus 2 of each power for matching ideas in the government form, for a total of 3 this time. And you can see a little bit about what each thing is. Intervene in war is basically taking the side of your friend on a war. Enforce peace is forcing the enemy of your friend to white peace. The guarantee is guaranteeing somebody that is a lower rank of you. So if you are a major power, you can guarantee local and city states. If you're a great power, you can guarantee anybody but another great power. Then there is also the threaten war, which is basically you demand a nation to cede a portion of their country, city specifically, no, city or province, there you go, to prevent them from going to war from you. If they are scared of you, they'll probably do it. And we have this little image here. It's not much, but it shows a great power and the things that they get as a result. In the background, there isn't all that much going on here. It's a very cropped image, so we can't really see a ton, but it's cool to see. I really don't like the diplomatic relation system. I really think that it's dumb. A small nation should be hampered diplomatically, but I don't think that they should have less diplomatic relations. You should be able to have as many diplomatic relations as you want, but maybe your diplomats don't work as well because, you know, you don't have the same leverage as a large nation, but I don't know. It is what it is. It's Paradox Games. They've always been this way. What else is there? The plus 1 trade route in the capital is nice for the larger powers. Obviously, that's going to be quite a strong buff, and the plus 1 or 2 to each power going along is going to gain them a lot of technology, which will be very useful. Everything, of course, is subject to change, and, you know, we have no idea if these things will even make it into the final game. Some of these things may even be cut. Maybe they'll completely drop the diplomatic relation buff. Highly unlikely, but maybe they would. Either way, that's it for this dev diary. We're gonna move on to the next one. Imperator Rome's development diary number 11 goes over basically all the buttons that you'll find on an army and a little bit about the modding capabilities that you'll have in these sorts of situations. So, first of all, there are reorganizational abilities like creating a unit, consolidating, detaching a siege, splitting in half, recruiting 2, and disbanding. If you've played any Paradox game, you'll understand how these work, but I'll go over them quickly. Creating a unit is pretty self-explanatory. If you have a larger army and you split a smaller one off, it will create a new army. You can consolidate 2 armies by merging them together. You can detach a siege, which basically leaves behind enough people to siege the province that they are in. You can split in half. Very easy to follow that one. You can recruit 2, which is clicking a button on the army page that will train troops within your country and send them directly to that army, and then you can disband, which is just getting rid of the army altogether. Then there's the interesting things, the toggles. You can select an objective, which is not really detailed here, but seems like you're going to be able to kind of say, hey, I want you to siege this area, or maybe I want you to suppress the rebels here. The sorts of things that you would see in EU4, maybe you can kind of do similar things, maybe even a little more. Well, we won't know until they actually say something about it. You can allow attachments, which is allowing friendly armies that aren't your own to attach to an army. You can select Cavalry Skirmish, which basically trades defense for offense on light cavalry and camels. Very good if you have a very offensive army that's going in trying to create some havoc. You can toggle the phalanx, which will give slower movements to armies, but heavy infantry defense will be much stronger. You can also do the Padma Vua, I guess. I don't know how to pronounce that, but again, slower movement for heavy infantry defense and archer offense. And then there is unit reorganization, which doubles the maintenance and slows the movement speed, but allows reinforcing and morale recovery of your armies to be much faster. This is very important because if you don't use it, then you have slow and kind of garbage reorganization. I think everybody's going to be messing with this a lot. And then there's Forced March, which is heavier attrition and no morale recovery, but you're able to march a lot faster. Now, I kind of forgot to mention this before, but cohorts that are loyal to their commanders will not be able to be reorganized away from those commanders, which makes sense because it would break the whole loyalty system if you could. Then in here, they also have another note where some of these are unlocked by different military traditions, and some of them are always available. And then it goes for the actions as well. And some of them also require a military power cost. Finally, there are the actions, the attach and detach to unit, which is basically the opposite of allow attachment. Totally missed that. Basically, if you have a friendly unit that allows attachment, you can attach to them. Shattered Retreat allows you to retreat an army towards your territory if they have lost a battle. This is good when you're trapped basically behind enemy forts, because forts have always been kind of impossible to deal with, at least in EU4. You can construct border forts, which creates a colony of an unowned city bordering you. I wanted to say province, but that is wrong. It adds a freeman pop of your culture and a fort of military power. Sounds pretty powerful, depending on how much it costs. You can desecrate a holy site, spending religious power in another nation's capital to reduce their omen power for a long time. Could be powerful depending on what they're doing. Raising levies spends military power to get more cohorts to your unit. Military colonies spends military power to create a freeman pop of your culture and religion in the current city. Okay, so that's the city that the army is in. And then you can raid a city, which is spending military power to steal gold from the enemy. And you can build roads, which builds a road between where they are and the next city that the army moves to. Again, some are unlocked by different military traditions, and some of them are always available. We again have a photo here. There's not a lot here to talk about, but at least you can finally see what a lot of these buttons mean and what they actually are, rather than just speculation like we had in the very beginning. Finally, they move on to modding support, and this is, it is what it is. Basically, it's saying that you can access any trigger, which kind of allows you to go outside of the scope of what you normally would be able to do in a program. And you can also use loops, which are very powerful tools. I think that it's very good that we can do these things, and hopefully we're going to see some really cool mods. I definitely am excited to dig in and see what I can do. So, yeah. That's it for this one. Moving on, we have Development Diary number 12, and this goes over technology. Now, technology is split into 4 different groups. There is, let me see if I can remember this. There's military, civic, oratory, and religious. Each of those have their own point amounts that you need to progress in the technology, very similar to just about every other Paradox game. Each technology field can have a researcher assigned to it, and that character impacts the speed with their finesse. Character prominence increases when they are holding the position, and they get permanent prominence from each month holding the position. Changing the researcher increases loyalty in the new researcher and dramatically drops the one being replaced. So you can kind of manipulate the people within your nation by adjusting who's researching and stuff like that. More than likely, people are going to have pretty... I would assume, and I haven't played the game yet, I don't know, maybe it's a terrible idea, but I would assume you would just kind of pick whoever has the most finesse, and you know what, if they have a lot of prominence, so what? But who knows, maybe that leads to large rebellion issues. We'll find out much later. A technology that is being researched at 100% efficiency. It'll take about 15 years. It can be faster or slower depending on what's going on. Each level researched in the 4 technology fields reduces the invention costs by 5%, which can turn around and reduce the technology costs. So, a little bit of a feedback loop in there. And they also give the following bonuses. So martial advances give you plus 10 Navy morale, plus 10 land morale, and minus 25% military tradition cost. Sounds very good. Then you have civic advances that give you plus 2% income from your commerce. And you have oratory advances that give you plus 1 civilization level, which in turn allows you to colonize and do things like that. Then there's religious advances that give you plus 2% omen power, which makes omens much more powerful. Inventions don't always just come from technology though. You can also spend civic power on some of them to get them immediately. There's always going to be 7 inventions to pick from and a total of 200 different ones, which will probably give all different bonuses, hopefully. Each of them has a tech level they're most likely to appear at, which prevents you from doing things like stacking a bunch of discipline bonuses and then going crazy on the world, which seems good. Each invention costs 50 civic power, but for each invention you've taken, the cost goes up by 20%, so things scale as you move along, while mentioned technology reduces it by 5%. So for every 4 tech levels, you basically mitigate the cost of a extra invention. Civic power is primarily used for 3 things: setting up trade routes, moving pops, and buying inventions. That's, supposed to be the balance between trade routes and inventions. Seems like the big balance to me, but moving pops might also be useful, maybe for keeping rebellions under wraps or something like that. Finally, we have development diary number 13, which I am actually really excited about. This actually sounds like a really fun system, and I'm very interested in interacting with it. Basically, it's all about a republic and the Senate that you have to deal with. First of all, we'll talk kind of about why you care about the Senate in the first place. Now, unlike a lot of strategy games, you're not getting bonuses because of your republic. You're actually being blocked from actions. So if the Senate does not approve of certain things, like changing laws that require approval, a lot of character interactions like banishing and imprisoning, and pretty much all diplomatic relations with other nations, you can't do those things because the Senate doesn't like it. The threshold is 40 seats, so as long as you have 39 or less seats that are against you, you can kind of do what you want. But depending on who those senators are, you may or may not be able to do the certain things that you want. Now, there are 5 different factions that you have to consider in Imperator Rome, at least at the base game here. There's the civic faction, the military faction, the mercantile faction, the religious, and the populous factions. Each of them, when they are in power and they have a speaker of that faction, give you certain bonuses. The civic faction gives you 25% tax income and 10% cheaper and faster buildings. Military factions give you plus 25% land morale and navy morale. Mercantile factions give you plus 25% commerce income and plus 5 diplomatic reputation. The religious faction gives you plus 10% omen duration and 33% cheaper religious conversion. And the populous faction actually increases your power cost by 10%. As you can see, the populous faction probably isn't going to be your favorite, but depending on what kind of things that you need to do in your nation, you may want the populous faction to be in power for a little while. It really just depends on what kind of actions they're going to be more likely to approve. The Senate itself is going to be made of 100 seats, so that's where the 40 seats comes from. If you have 40% of your Senate against you, then you can't really do things. The amount of seats in your Senate changes over time. That's what it says here, but I think what they're trying to say is the composition of your Senate changes over time, right? So your military faction may gain while you have a charismatic military leader, and your, populist faction goes down as a result. If you want to strengthen a party's position directly, you can do so with oratory power, but it's also going to increase your tyranny, so you kind of have to be careful about what you're doing if you want to actually stay a republic for very long. In general, you just kind of have to be watching your Senate and making sure that you have a decent level of whatever factions you want so that you can do the things that you need to. Finally, you have to consider what your actions are going to do for the factions that are a part of your Senate. When you do something that is overtly pacifist, you can expect that your military faction isn't going to be very happy, and you can gain or lose loyalty as well as seats from certain actions. There are a couple notes here for modders. First of all, you can freely add or remove factions to make them available to different government types, or have any type trigger allowing the faction to give unique ones. And then another note over here is that all of this can be controlled entirely through the powerful scripting language that is allowed through Jomini. Jomini? I think it's Jomini. Maybe Jomini? I'm not entirely sure. But they give you an example of the calculations for declare war, and basically approval is going to be a factor of your military party, obviously, the base modifier, all of these things. And then there's generic modifiers. There are, current military party, aristocratic republics. It's a huge list. allows you to do very powerful calculations, and if you want to look into it yourself, you know, the development diary will be linked along with the other two. We also get a new image here talking or showing diplomacy, not really talking about. In the image, it looks like they are considering declaring war on Carthage, and as a result, they're looking at what's going to happen when they do. They'll lose support what looks like in the civic, mercantile, and populist factions, but they'll gain support in their militarist faction. They also are going to change seats as a result, and then hovering over the demand tribute, you can see there are 60 seats behind the demand tribute of Carthage in the Senate. The civic faction has 15 of 20, the military faction 13 of 20, the mercantiles 11, the religious faction 16, and the populist faction 5. So it seems very much that the populist faction will be very pacifistic, maybe mercantile in some nature, but not too much. Obviously, the mercantile nation or faction is all about making money. The religious faction is about your religion. The military faction about war and all of that. And the civic faction probably about improving your nation. Next week, they're going to be talking about laws and offices, which will come out tomorrow for me. But now that I'm all caught up, I can kind of do the other form of video that I had done previously, and we can, you know, get those out in a timely format. So yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed. This was a long recording session for me, but I kind of just wanted to get everything together so that I can be up to date again. If you guys did enjoy, you know, do all the things. You can like the video, share it with your friends, and all of that, and it helps me out a great deal. If you have a lot of interest in talking about these things, maybe discussing it with some people that are like-minded, I have a Discord channel that is linked in the description as well. That's where we tend to talk about these things, as well as, you know, if I go live or something like that on Twitch, then you can kind of see it there. You get some notifications and whatnot. Other than that, I expect to be working on the... what was it again? It was Politics and Laws and Offices Dev Diary next week, so you can expect something probably, I don't know, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe Friday next week. It kind of depends on how long it takes for me to do the graphics and stuff like that. And yeah, again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.